Right, we're going to look at the final three parts of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We set the stage last time by noting how it interestingly connected the story of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table to the story of Troy. Sort of an unexpected connection, but also very interesting because it connects virtue with freedom out of that tale. Because, as I say, Felix Brutus is one of the, obviously, the ancestors of pious Aeneas, but also with the famous Brutus who slew Caesar and defended liberty against tyrant. And but in a Christian rendering, we have a different and more nuanced relation between moral conduct of the court, and liberty, and how that's best represented. And it's best represented in Christian terms by opposing sin and by, to some degree, overcoming sin. And that's what the court of King Arthur was to represent. This is Camelot. This is the place of human equality and freedom and dignity and courtesy, which abhors sin. And the understanding of the chivalrous age is that, and we see a lot of this going on, there's a lot, and even in movie renditions of this age, we see jousting and tournaments. And the understanding in that is not the understanding that we would bring to bear in our age of professionalism, that these are highly trained athletes and they have a certain body type, and they have received the appropriate training from days of since they were young and selected, and go through academies and have eaten all the right foods to end up prevailing in battle. The understanding is very different than that. It's not the strength of arm that wins in the battle, it's the fidelity of the knight that will win ultimately, that God will favor those that honor him. And that's the understanding of the age of chivalry. In a battle, it's actually the most virtuous knight that will prevail. And so there's more at stake in the encounters and the battles than merely a test of physical strength. It's a question of spiritual strength. I need to say that here because we're not going to see that in the time of Achilles or of Odysseus or of Aeneas. Aeneas' piety is being recommended to us, obviously. He is a long-suffering, and he's willing to put himself in the back seat for the glory of Rome, for the glory of what he will do for the nation that will come after him. And there is obviously a virtuous conduct being represented and embodied for us and recommended to us. But it's not that we think that he wins because of that. It's commended to us, but that's not the means by which he triumphs. But in a Christian context, it's their faith that brings them the victory. Because Christ himself is the actual victor. We are clothed in Christ. We put on Christ. We act according to his model, and we will see that Gawain has thus far exhibited all of the features of Christian conduct. He's not very proud of himself, unlike King Arthur, who's presented as a very proud man. Even though he's the king and he represents the Christian kingdom, he doesn't represent it very well in his own demeanor. But Gawain does. I think we have entirely favorable conceptions of what Gawain is like as a man at this point. It's only good. He speaks courteously. He acts humbly. He's willing to put his own neck on the line, quite literally, in this encounter with the Green Knight. And with that, the whole age's beliefs are put on trial. So he's the representative of the court here, and he's a good representative, unlike Arthur, who is not. And we left off last time by noting that the Green Knight was very happy that it was Gawain, whom he knew by reputation. And remember, we left it off with a sort of a covenant between the two. Yes, he could get the first blow, but then he would have to agree that he would receive the same in a year and a day's time. And we found out that this man who received this was called the Knight of the Green Chapel. And he would have to find him. That's where we left off. And part 2 begins with the time between that encounter and where we just left off. So there's a year's span. And in the interim, there's a lot of waiting around, although in the poem not so much. So I'll read a little bit at any rate. With this earnest of high deeds, thus Arthur began the young year, for brave vows he yearned to hear made. Though such words were wanting when they went to table, now of fell work to full grasp filled were their hands. Gawain was gay as he began those games in the hall, but if the end be unhappy, hold it no wonder. For though men be merry of mood when they have mightily drunk, a year slips by swiftly, never the same returning. The outset to the ending is equal, but seldom. And so this Yule passed, over and the year after, and severally the seasons ensued in their turn. After Christmas came the crabbed Lenten. This is the season of Lent, the Christian calendar. This is a season of self-denial. Right? There's a fasting period. Likewise, the season is lean. I'm not the only one. That with fish tries the flesh, and with food more meager. Likewise the seasons. And there's a sort of sense here of the Christian calendar mapping out the earthly calendar. So in the winter, Lent. As the spring comes, but then the weather in the world makes war on the winter, cold creeps into the earth, clouds are uplifted, shining rain is shed in showers, that all warm fall on the fair turf. Flowers there open, of grounds and of groves, green is the raiment. So there's something of the greenness of the Green Knight as well. There's a sense of coldness. Now, is this a commentary on what preceded this? The Green Knight representing the spring, the winter celebrated, at least in form, by the Knights of the Round Table. Was it actually a spiritually lean season? Is it really as Christian as it presented itself as? I'm not sure, and the text doesn't explicitly comment on it. I just simply note the apposition of the greenness of the night, the winter, or the solstice time in the Yule, and compare it to this. And we find that the spring gives way, and then after the season of summer with its soft breezes, when zephyr goes sighing through seeds and herbs, right glad is the grass that grows in the open, when the damp dewdrops are dripping from the leaves to greet a gay glance of the glistening sun. But when harvest hurries in, now we've come to the autumn, and hardens it quickly, warns it before winter to wax to ripeness, he drives with his drought the dust till it rises from the face of the land and flies up aloft. Wild wind in the welkin makes war on the sun, the leaves loosed, etc. And then we come to Michaelmas. This is the season which is leading up to Christmas. And now, in terms of the story, to the time when Gawain is going to have to do what he vowed to do, which is to go find the Green Knight. And yet, till All Hallows with Arthur he lingered. Now, All Hallows is when? Halloween, right? All Hallows. So it's the end of October, and he's still not left. And how come? Why is he tarrying so long with Arthur? He seems a little bit reluctant to depart, and for obvious reasons. who furnished on that festival feast for the night with much revelry of the Round Table, the knights of renown and noble ladies, all for the love of that Lord had longing at heart. But nevertheless, the more lightly of laughter they spoke. Many were joyless, who jested for his gentle sake. So they put on airs of revelry and not caring when the whole court is anxious about Gawain. And he likewise. They're pretending that all is well. But they know that he's going to go meet the Green Knight who was able to speak through a head he was holding in his hands not that long ago. So it doesn't bode well, the future. They're anxious about it. And yet they're pretending. Were they pretending before? I mean, the narrator led us to suspect that all was not well even before this point. That's when the Green Knight came, saw Arthur in his pride. The court was renowned for certain things. The Green Knight said, I don't think so. He questioned it openly. He mocked them. Talked about them as being babes, beardless babes on the benches. You know, there's no real men here. There's nobody going to stand up like a Christian knight. And they go through an array of the leaders, and he says, finally, I care not further to trouble you with the tale, but save a trifling point. I must set forth to my fate without fail in the morning, as God will me guide the green man to seek. And off he will go. And he gets ready. Now, when he gets ready, we have a type scene, which goes with epic heroes as well. I haven't actually mentioned this, but I perhaps should have. An arming scene. And the arming scene takes place with a description, often of a shield. It's called, the phrase in literary studies is called an ekphrasis. E-K-P-H-R-A-S-I-S. It's a description, but it begins with a sort of a wonder, an expression of wonder, and then the description of what's on the shield, and then again at the conclusion an expression of wonder. So there's something about the artifice of the shield, but the shield is suitable to the hero. Now, in the Iliad, we had the shield of Achilles. We didn't even look at the Iliad. So I think it's in Iliad book 19. And it depicts more than you would expect on it. It's sort of a global picture. The same thing is in Aeneas's shield in book 6, I believe, of the Aeneid. And on that, we have again a picture of almost like a painting. It's depicting matters of great significance. And we certainly saw in the underworld that Aeneas saw the whole array of human history, at least according to the Romans' perspective, leading to Ford. So it gives you this account of human history there. We're going to find the same thing here. It's not an epic, but we have a hero that almost has epic qualities. He certainly is being compared insofar as his shield is not just there to protect him. It tells a story. And the story it tells is of what's most important to him and his culture. And it's got two sides, the shield. It's got an inside and an outside. On the outside, it has something called the endless knot. It's a star. It's a pentacle. You know what I mean by a pentacle? I assume. Rather than do my terrible rendition. Like that. Anything like that. That's as good as any. No, I don't want your explanation. Oh my goodness. Save me time. Great. I just want the picture. What a mistake. Symbolism. Color green knight, the color green. Oh my goodness, don't go to these sites. Pentangle. showing me pills. Oh, you didn't even give me the, oh my goodness. Okay, forget it. There you go, you see. It's a pentangle. It's called the endless knot. It goes up, down, da, da, da. You don't know where it begins, you don't know where it ends. Solomon's symbol, it's also called. Now, Solomon renowned for wisdom. And the points of the pentangle, the 5 points of the pentangle are allegories or representations of certain things, and we're going to get that depicted. On the inside of the shield is the Blessed Virgin Mary. Very interestingly. On the outside, we get this depiction of the virtues of knighthood being presented. Well, let me come to them rather than this stupid picture. I just wanted to show a pentangle. But he will arm himself, and we will speak about this at great length here. And he sits on his horse, whose name is Gringolet. The horse has a name. Alexander had a famous horse, Bucephalus. Heroes historically their horses have names, and the names of the horses are even renowned and memorable. Even I remembered the name of Alexander's horse. You wouldn't normally know the name of anyone's horse, but there we do. And here it's Gringolet, and suitable to the hero. Everything about him is known to us. He's groomed. He's got a bright gold braid, breastplate, etc. But I want to get to the pentangle. This is in 27. His blazon was that of brilliant gules with the pentangle depicted in pure hue of gold. With the baldric he caught it about his neck, cast it. No, baldric is the strap around the shield. So you can put it on your back, right? When you're riding, the shield part goes to the back and the straps around your front, so you can ride with it, and then when you need it, flip it around to the front. He caught it and about his neck cast it, right well and worthily it went with the knight. And why the pentangle is proper to that prince so noble, I intend now to tell you. So he's going to slow down the narrative to focus in on this thing, because this object is no ordinary object. It tells us a story about the knight in itself. And this is interesting, and this is what happens over the course of time. I've already talked about the epic and the way the epic advances and builds upon previous epics. Same thing with art. Paintings, music, story, it starts to become complex and layered, and it needs interpretation. And the interpretation is not a straightforward thing. You can't just look at it and say, oh, well, I see a pentangle, so it's a 5-pointed star. Okay, but what does it represent? Well, it requires an interpretation here. But the interpretation says a lot about the whole culture, and also about the man wielding the shield. So he represents the culture. What does the culture represent? Well, the 5 points that are on the shield. What are they? It is the sign that Solomon once set on time to betoken troth. Remember I talked about troth? It's truth. It's Gawain's truth, but it's also his fidelity, his covenant. He's a man of his word. His word is his truth. The truth is his word. He says and does. He does what he says what he does. There's no incongruity there. It's in keeping with Christian theology. Jesus is the word of God. In Hebrew, the word for word is devar. The word devar has two connotations. One is word and the other is an action. When God speaks, he acts. In Greek, it's the logos. Logos has not just connotations of action, but also of an internal structure that it makes sense. It's logical. Like logos, logic. Coherence. Rationality. Meaning, purpose is revealed in all that. So it's a deep layered thing. We start with a Hebrew word which connotes action. We see that in Genesis 1. I talked about that when we looked at that, comparing Genesis to Ovid's Metamorphosis. But in John's Gospel, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, referring back to Genesis 1. But now it's talking about the person, Christ. He was with him in the beginning. All things were made through him. and by him, and nothing was made that was made. The Logos. It betokens troth, but there's also a covenant being fulfilled. So this is very much strongly in this symbol of a pentangle connecting with the Christian story. And the man, Gawain, who calls himself a Christian knight, is like that man, Jesus Christ, in every sense. Perfect integrity. Betokens truth as it is entitled to do, for it is a figure that in 5 points holdeth, and each line overlaps and is linked with another, and every way it is endless. And the English, I hear, everywhere name it the endless knot. So it well suits this knight and his unsullied arms, forever faithful, in 5 points, and 5 times under each. Gawain was good as acknowledged, and as gold refined, devoid of every vice, and with virtues adorned. So there the pentangle painted new, he on shield and coat did wear, as one of word most true, and knight of bearing fair. So on the outside and on the inside, Gawain represents Christ. That's what he is to represent. And the court represents that, and he represents the court. Now let's talk about the fives. It's going to get down to the points of the 5. What do they mean? Well, first, faultless was he found in his 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste. He was faultless. So in his body. And next in the 5 fingers, he failed at no time. His deeds. It's not just talking about the fact that he's got 5 fingers, but his deeds, just like in Deuteronomy 6 verses 5 or thereabouts, when you put the word on your forehead, and it's also on your arm, well, that's your deeds. Your hand represents your actions. So he's faultless in his 5 fingers. It means his deeds are always faultless. Not just that he hasn't lost a finger or something. And firmly on the 5 wounds all his faith was set. The 5 wounds: hands, feet, side. The 5 wounds of Christ. He's fixed on the wounds of Christ. He contemplates what the suffering of Christ did to redeem him. And wherever the brave man into battle was come, on this beyond all things was his earnest thought, that ever from the 5 joys all his valor he gained, that to heaven's courteous queen once came from her child. The 5 joys of Mary, the Annunciation, etc. There's a whole series of joys that he also partakes in. So there's deeply his thoughts, even when he sees an enemy, he's not thinking about the enemy, he's thinking about the true enemy that has been vanquished by his Lord, by his knight. So he's not afraid of any foe that he sees. And in fact, not only is he not afraid, he's joyous in the encounter. And then finally, for which cause the knight had in comely wise on the inner side of his shield her image depainted. So he sees the Virgin Mary when he looks at he doesn't look at the enemy, he looks at her, and he knows at her joys. So he is joyous in battle, not because he really likes fighting, but because he knows the battle's been won, and he rejoices in the victory that's already been attained for him. So that that's what he sees. And when he cast his eyes thither, his courage never failed. When he cast his eyes thither. The 5th 5 that was used, as I find, by this knight was free giving and friendliness, first before all. Now we're going to get to his virtues. 5 virtues mentioned. 1, he was free giving and friendly. Charitable, he gave away things gladly. 2nd, chastity. He was chaste. He didn't commit adultery. And chivalry, ever changeless and straight. Now, chivalry is the conduct that befits a chevalier, a knight, a man on a horse, not just any old horse, but certain things. It's really interesting that a horse is a horse. It's a 4-legged animal, but it's associated with nobility. We see a horse as a noble animal. I do anyway. And the associations of horses are really important. I mean, it's an animal just like a dog or a pig or whatever. But you can ride a horse, and horses have a certain character about them. And they're famous for this. They're brave. They also have, and again, an extraordinary feature of a horse, their skin is so thin that it's more sensitive than a human skin. So if you whip them, it really hurts. And you don't need to whip them. Like a horse rider, when you see in the horse races, and you want the horse to go, you put the whip right by its eye. Right, when you're riding, you put it up in the whip, and he sees it. Just the thought of it is enough to get him going. You hit the thing, you better just tap it, because it's agony, right? But it knows that. And so you have this strong beast, in Scripture, a symbol of a strength of a king. Pharaoh, he has so many horses. We even talk about that. How many horses a king possesses is a symbol of his military prowess. But again, it's a noble beast. And Gawain rides one of these. The knight and the horse almost go together. He's sensitive and he's strong. He's noble in all of his demeanor, his carriage, etc. And piety surpassing all 5 points. So above all of those virtues represented, he has a piety. These perfect 5 were hasped upon him harder than on any man else. Now, these 5 series, in sooth, in truth, were fastened on this knight, and each was knit with another and had no ending. So like the points that have no ending, the perfect knot, you don't know where one begins, where it ends, and it's the perfect knot. Likewise in Gawain. He is the perfect symbol of what's depicted on his shield. So an object that represents the man who represents Christ. So perfect symbolism here. The shield of Achilles depicted the world, it didn't depict the man. Here we have the shield depicting the man, and the man is actually a representation of God. These were fixed at 5 points that failed not at all, coincided in no line, nor sundered either. There was no break in the line. Not ending in any angle, anywhere, as I discover, wherever the process was put in play or passed to an end. Therefore, on his shining shield was shaped now this knot royally with red gules upon red gold set. This in the pure pentangle as people of learning have taught. Connection between character and teaching. Paul says to Timothy, watch your life and watch your doctrine. The two go together. Orthodox thinking, orthodox speech, orthodox action. Or orthodoxy and orthopraxy, as people call it. Whatever. I think that's pretentious. You hear it all the time. Whatever. Idea. Word and action, right? Devar. The word, he does in accordance with his word. Gawain does what he says. In accordance with the faithfulness shown to him, he too will be faithful. And so all of these things represent, and this is what is at stake in the conflict. It's not just a man confronting an enormous green fey man. It's more than that. It's a religious conflict. That's how Gawain will see it. And the court, reflecting their lack of faith, I would say, are afraid when he goes. They don't want him to go. They act as if everything's okay, but they are acting. It's plain that they are acting. Just going through the motions. They know they shouldn't be afraid because of all the things that have just been said, but they are afraid. So off he goes. And he says, before God, 'tis a shame that thou, Lord, must be lost, who art in life so noble. This is what the people he leaves behind say. We see a dead man riding. Right? He's riding off. He's not coming back. To behave with more heed would have behooved one of sense, they say. And that dear lord duly a duke to have made, illustrious leader of liegemen in this land as befits him. And that would better have been than to be butchered to death, beheaded by an elvish man for an arrogant vaunt. Who can recall any king that such a course ever took as knights quibbling at court at their Christmas games that are rebuking Arthur for even letting him go? What a stupid thing. What a noble man like this wasting his life just because he gave his word. So the court's response reflects exactly what the Green Knight said about them. You're reputed for all these things. You're a bunch of hypocrites. He didn't say that, but that's the effect, that's the import of what he said. Out they go. Now he arise, arrayed through the realm of Logres. Now this is another name for Camelot. This is the kingdom. Sir Gawain in God's care, though no game, no he found it. Oft forlorn and alone he lodged of a night, where he found not afforded him such fare as pleased him. He had no friend but his horse in the forests and hills, no man on his march to commune with but God. Till anon he drew near unto northern Wales. So he's going up the west coast. He's going through, historically, King Arthur's kingdom is held to reside somewhere in Wales, west of England. Nobody knows for sure exactly, but that's the thought. All the isles of Anglesey he beheld on his left, and he's going to go up towards, and it's going to mention the Wirral, which is a river that goes through to what today is called Liverpool. If you know anything about England, the west coast, Liverpool. Rains there all the time. Down the middle of England, there's a mountain range called the Pennines. They go right up the spine of the country. The water comes over from the west, it hits that, and it drops it. The east coast doesn't get the rain the same way. But there, rains a lot. In Wales and all along the west coast. So it's very green as a result. All the way to the wilderness of Wirral, there wandered but few who with goodwill regard either God or mortal. So we're in a wilderness. We don't find God-fearing people here. What else do we find? And ever he asked, as he went on all whom he met, if they had heard any news of a knight that was green in any ground thereabouts, or of green chapel, and all denied it, saying, nay, that never in their lives a single man had they seen that of such a color could be. And he goes a very strange way, and he goes over, and what does he find? He gets into fights. What does he fight with? Well, he fights with worms. Worms are dragons. He's not hitting the earthworms as they come up. Bad worms. No, worms, serpents. What else? Wolves, wood trolls, bulls, bears, boars, ogres. Creatures that you'll find in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Right? He's fighting beasts, but even not just beasts by our standards, supernatural beings. Like extraordinary. Monsters. He's fighting the monsters. Just like Beowulf had to. Right? So it's something of that. But that's not the focus of the story. That's just passing through. On his way to get to the place he has to go, he has to suffer enormous deprivation. And had he not been stalwart and staunch and steadfast in God, he doubtless would have died. And death had met often. For though war wearied him much, the winter was worse. When the cold, clear water from the clouds spilling froze ere it had fallen upon the faded earth, just like outside today. He doesn't have a down coat filled with down feathers. He's freezing outside. Well nigh slain by the sleet, he slept ironclad. So he's wearing, like, it's cold, and he's got iron on him. The iron is cold. It's not keeping him warm, it's doing the opposite. More nights than are now in the naked rocks. He doesn't even have anything over his head. There, clattering from the crest, the cold brook tumbled and hung high over his head in hard icicles. Off he goes, and he goes all the way till Christmas Eve, that country he crossed all long in need. The knight did at that tide his plaint to Mary plead. So at Christmas Eve, he prays to Mary. Because now, remember, he's got to get there by New Year's. And it's Christmas Eve. He's got a week. Her riders rode to guide into some lodging lead. By a mount in the morning merrily he was riding into a forest that was deep and fearsomely wild. The good man on Gringlet goes now beneath them through marshes and mires, and prays once again, I beseech thee, O Lord, and Mary, who is the mildest mother most dear, for some harbor where with honor I may hear the mass and thy matins tomorrow. This meekly I ask, and thereto promptly I pray with Pater and Ave and Creed. He wants to spend Christmas in a house of God. Praise. Prayer he did now ride, lamenting his misdeed. He blessed him oft and cried, the cross of Christ me speed. The sign on himself he had set but thrice, 1, 2, 3, crosses himself 3 times when lo, now he can see. There you go. A mansion in front of him. It's a miracle. Note that he has a sign on his shield, the 5-pointed pentangle, and now he crosses himself. Again, a sign. And his words go with it, and the miracle. Up before him he sees a castle, most comely that ever a king possessed. Amid this, and he thanks Jesus and St. Julian, who generous are both, who had courtesy accorded him, and to his cry hearkened. Now, bon hostel, I beg of you still. On he goes over the bridge, and he meets there the guard at the gate. Good sir, quoth Gawain, will you go with my message to the high lord of this house for harbor to pray? Yes, by Peter, quoth the porter, and I promise indeed that you will, sir, be welcome while you wish to stay here. He goes in and delivers him over to the house, the lord of the house, and the lord leaves his chamber, comes mannerly to meet the man on the floor, and says, you're welcome to stay here. In he goes. What sort of man is this? Gawain gazed at the good man, who had greeted him kindly. And he thought, bold and big was the baron of the castle, very large and long. And his life at the prime, broad and bright was his beard, and all beaver-hued. Stern, strong in his stance upon stalwart legs, his face fell as fire. And frank in his speech, and well it suited him in sooth, as it seemed to the knight, a lordship to lead, untroubled over lieges trusty. So we have this man who is an enormous man. Might remind us of somebody we've met earlier in the story. Well, this guy's not green. But otherwise. And he calls to his chamber the Lord takes him away, and they have dinner together, and wine and mirth, and they ask him what he's doing there, and now we get to that. Inquiring question were carefully put, touching personal points to that prince himself, till he courteously declared that to the court he belonged, that King High Arthur in honor held in his sway. And 'twas Gawain himself that was their guest now sat, and had come for that Christmas, as the case had turned out. When the Lord had learned whom luck had brought him, loud laughed he thereat. So delighted he was, and they made very merry, all the men in the castle, to appear in the presence, were pressing and eager, and they note and say to each other, now, fairly shall we mark the fine points of manners, and the perfect expressions of polished conversation. How speech is well spent will be expounded, unasked, since we have found here this fine father of breeding. God has given us his goodness, his grace now indeed, who such a guest as Gawain has granted us to have, because here is the model of fair speech, of courtesy himself, Courtesy personified is Gawain. This is great. And they sing and they learn that manners high may mean this knight will now impart. Who hears him will, I ween, of love speech learn some art, because he's not just courteous in the sense of polite, he's also going to represent the courtly lover. He's going to speak fairly to maidens. He's going to speak fairly to everyone. Everyone is going to be delighted with Gawain in his speech. We're going to find this when he encounters the lady of the manor, that this is one of the things that, one of his challenges is that he always has to speak kindly to her and politely to her and courteously to her, even when she's a little bit direct with him. Direct, to put it mildly. And who is she? There she is. The lady longed to see that knight. And from her closet she came with comely maidens. What's a lady doing in the closet? Now, where else would you put a lady? Stick her in the closet, I don't know. That's not what the closet is. She's not in the closet. They don't have to open the door. Out comes the lady. The closet, it's just a sort of an inset chamber. She gets to sit there. It's built into the wall, made of wood. It's called a closet, but it's not a closet. In the sense we have a door on the closet. There's no door. She's not hidden away. She's seated in a recess in the wall. And she comes out, and other maidens with her, her attendants. How about this lady? Now, we've already heard about Guinevere, the most beautiful woman on earth. Everyone says it. How about this woman? She was fairer in face, in her flesh and her skin, her proportions, her complexion, and her port than all others. And more lovely than Guinevere, to Gawain she looked. Wow. He came through the chancel to pay court to her grace. Leading her by the left hand, another lady was there who was older than she. We have two women, in fact. We've got Beauty, and then we got the other one. How about the other one? Another lady was there who was older than she, indeed ancient she seemed, and held in high honor by all men about her. But unlike in their looks, those two ladies appeared. For if the younger was youthful, yellow was the elder. With rose hue, the one face was richly mantled. Rough, wrinkled cheeks rolled on the other. On the kerchiefs of the one, many clear pearls were. Her breast and bright throat were bare displayed, fairer than white snow that falls on the hills, again like outside today. The other was clad with a cloth that enclosed all her neck. Enveloped was her black chin with chalk white veils, her forehead folded in skin, and so fumbled all up, so topped up and trinketed and with trifles bedecked, that naught was bare of that belle dame, but her eyebrows all black, her two eyes and her nose and her naked lips, and those were hideous to behold, and horribly bleared, and that a worthy dame she may well, for God, be said. Short body and thick waist, with bulging buttocks spread, more delicious to the taste was the one she by her led. So it's not quite Beauty and the Beast, but we have a picture of Beauty, and then we have this old crone. And it's funny, the depiction's purposefully, the narrator is trying to make us laugh at the portrait. When Gawain glimpsed that gay lady that so gracious looked, with leave sought of the Lord towards the ladies he went. The elder he saluted, low to her bowing. About the lovelier he laid then lightly his arms and kissed her in courtly wise. He didn't kiss the old lady, he kissed the young one. Who can blame him? But anyway, and he does so with courtesy, however. And it's appropriate. Again, he probably should not be kissing the older woman, but he should be kissing the lady concerned here. And his acquaintance they requested, and quickly he begged to be their servant. In sooth, if so they desired. They took him between them, And talking, they led him to a fireside in a fair room, and first of all called for spices, which men sped without sparing to bring them, and ever wine therewith well to their liking. The Lord, for their delight, leapt up full often, many times merry games being minded, and they have great fun, rejoicing. And they're being entertained, and they're entertaining him suitably. Now, I spent 9 years in England. This is typical of the way English manners work. The pairs are, you have male, female, and you're getting seated that way as well. You don't get the men seated together, the women seated together, separate sides of the table. You get the men and women interspersed. And the host, his wife, will be seated with another man, and vice versa. So it's not you talk to the person you came with, you're talking and you're expected to be able to speak appropriately in the situation. You're supposed to be humorous, you're supposed to be courteous, you're supposed to be all of the above, no offense. It persists to this day. Something of this same demeanor. Can Canadians pull this off? I don't think so. Not anymore. If they ever could, they can't now. Or not many of us. Expectations of, and note there's something of civility in not engaging only with your own sex, but with the opposite sex. There's a certain sort of speech that is difficult. It doesn't come naturally. It's something you have to cultivate there. And that's what's being exhibited here on both sides. So the ladies here are being courteous to him, and he likewise. They're not offended by him. They're delighted with his company. There is a mutuality and an enjoyment of the opposite sex. It's not rude. It's not crude. It's enjoyment. And that is how this is portrayed. Now, on the morn when every man remembers the time that our dear Lord for our doom to die was born. What a great line. You could just say on Christmas Day. 2 lines. When the morn on when every man remembers the time that our dear Lord for our doom to die was born. In every home awakes happiness on earth for his sake. So did it there on that day with the dearest delights. Now remember, time, comparison, that's where the whole story began. Christmas. We're here at Christmas again. Very different court, but still, we're supposed to keep that in our minds. And so did it there on that day with the dearest delights. At each meal and at dinner, marvelous dishes men set on the dais. Again, they're up on a platform. The daintiest meats, the old ancient woman was highest at table. So the most honored place was to the old woman, whoever she is. Not told exactly, but clearly held in reverence. The old ancient woman's highest at table, meetly to her side the master, he took him. Gawain and the gay lady together were seated. So the master of the house is with the old lady, and Gawain is with the master's wife. Seated in the center, where as was seemly the service began, and so on through the hall as honor directed. Now note here, the Lord is not waiting to be served last. He's not saying everyone else has to be fed last. It seems seemly for him that the center of the table be fed first. Whatever, I mean, just we notice the contrast there a little bit. And so on through the hall as honor directed. When each good man in his degree without grudge had been served, there was food, there was festival, there was fullness of joy. And to tell all the tale of it, I should tedious find. Though pains I might take every point to detail, yet I ween that Gawain and that woman so fair in companionship took such pleasure together in sweet society, soft words speaking, their courteous converse clean and clear of all evil, that with their pleasant pastime no prince's sport compares. Compare that to Arthur. He wants battles, he wants a miracle, he wants some sort of marvel. Conflict. But here we have courtesy. The court of the two could not be more starkly opposed. Drums beat, the trumps men whine. Wind, many pipers play their airs, each man his needs did mind, and they too minded theirs. And they go on, and they decide that they're going to have, I need to get through this, so let me cut to the chase here. There is They ask him what he's doing there, and he says that he has to go to the Green Chapel. Tell me where that is. The Lord of the Manor says, I know exactly where it is. It's not a day's ride from here. So you can stay here. In fact, I insist that you stay. Be my guest. Stay here. And Gawain is delighted. I would very gladly sit here in this pleasant company where it's warm and I get food. And I have this beautiful lady. Absolutely, let me stay here for 3 days. And so he says, okay. And all right, well then while we're here, let's have a little fun. We'll do a little game. And here's the game. Each day, and they're going to make an agreement, a pact. Make an agreement. Whatever I win in the wood at once shall be yours, and whatever gain you may get, you shall give in exchange. Thus we swap thus, sweet man, come, say what you think, whether one's luck be light or one's lot be better. So the Lord of the Manor is going to go out on a hunt, and whatever he wins that day, he'll bring back to Gawain and give it to him. Gawain's going to stay inside and rest. And whatever he gets during that day, he will give to the Lord at the end of the day, and that's their pact. It's a funny little game. Okay, I like that. Done, 'tis a bargain. Who will bring us the drink? And they laugh, and laugh. Okay, now part 3 sets in. The game is afoot. It seems a very gentle sort of game, not very threatening at all. What's threatening is the Green Knight that comes in part 4. But part 3, he's just resting up. But more is going on here than meets the eye. There are 3 days of hunt. There are 3 beasts that will be hunted. I'll go through them relatively swiftly here. What have I got? I've got a little bit of time. The Lord of the Manor is going to ride out and hunt, and he hunts 3 beasts. What are the 3 beasts? Well, the first is a deer. Harts go past with their high antlers. Got points on them. The more points, every point they get a year, every year they add another point to their antlers. So big rack. Noble, again, noble quarry. In the bestiaries of the medieval world, this is a suitable animal to hunt. It's good food, and it's what a nobleman wants to hunt. You want to go hunt deer, and they're going out, and he's doing exactly that. And there's a pack of hounds with him, sort of directing the deer into the path of the hunter. The hunter shoots them, and so forth. And they go through this. He hunts this, and while he's doing this, Gawain's, well, he's having a bit of a lie-in. He is sleeping in his bed. Lord's up at the crack of dawn. Gawain is resting, lying in his goodly bed, lazing till the walls are lit by the light of day under costly coverlet with curtains above him. I should say something here. He doesn't have pajamas on. They don't have jammies in medieval times. He has no clothes on. They don't wear clothes to bed. The covers are called bedclothes. That's one of the words in English for it. He's wearing bedclothes. Well, the bedclothes are the covers. It's important for what follows here. And as in slumber he strayed, he heard stealthily come a soft sound at his door, as it secretly opened, and from under the clothes he craned then his head. So, what's going on here? And looked at that way warily to learn what it was. It was the lady herself, most lovely to see, that cautiously closed the door quietly behind her, and drew near to his bed. Then abashed was the knight. His face has gone red. What? She's come into the room and closed the door. What do I do? And there lingered very long to look for his waking. No, he's going, I'm sleeping. She'll go away. I'll pretend I'm not. She's not here, right? And again, humor. He's pretending to be asleep. He lay there long lurking, and wondered and mused in his mind how the matter would go, to what point it might pass to some surprise, he fancied. Yet he said to himself, more seemly 'twould be in due course with question to inquire what she wishes. Now think about Odysseus with the young lady in book 6 of the Odyssey. Right? She comes and, what do I do here? Do I fall at her knees and do what I normally do here, or maybe better stay off at a distance and greet her? And same thing going on in his head here. How do I act here? I think it's better to ask her. So he does. I can't hear pretending I'm asleep the entire day. She's not going to believe that. I may as well ask. Then rousing, he rolled over and ran round to her. Turning, he lifted his eyelids with look as of wonder, and signed him with the cross, thus safer to be kept aright. With chin and cheeks so sweet, of blended red and white, with grace then him did greet, small lips with laughter bright. Good morning, Sir Gawain. You know, you can imagine her prancing at that, terrible high voice. An attempt at a high voice. You are a careless sleeper, if one can creep on you so. Now quickly you are caught. If we come not to terms, I shall bind you in your bed. You may be assured. With laughter the lady thus lightly jested. Good morning to your grace. Now remember, he cannot give her any indication that she's speaking inappropriately, because she would take offense at that. So no matter what she says, no matter how she acts, he has to act as everything is, this is going well. We're all joyous and there's nothing going on here, nothing to see. No, nothing untoward. I'm here and you're here, and what on earth are you doing in my room? Nope, you can't do that. That would offend her. You can't do that. He has to be courteous. And he jested in return with much gentle laughter. But if you would, lady gracious, then leave, grant me, and release your prisoner, and pray him to rise, I would abandon this bed and better array me. The more pleasant would it prove then to parley with you. Nay, forsooth, fair sir, said the sweet lady, you shall not go from your bed. I will govern you better. Here fast shall I enfold you on the far side also, and then talk with my true knight that I have taken so. For I wot well, indeed, I know well, that Sir Gawain you are, to whom all men pay homage wherever you ride. Your honor, your courtesy by the courteous is praised, by lords, by ladies, by all living people, and right here you now are, and we all by ourselves. My husband and his huntsmen far hence have ridden, other men are abed, and my maids also, the door closed, and caught with a clasp that is strong. And since I have in this house one that all delight in, my time to account I will turn, while for talk I chance have still. To my body will you welcome be, of delight to take your fill, for need constraineth me to serve you, and I will. Now, you can understand this in two ways. One is just, I'm at your service. And you can understand as, I'm at your service, as in the door is closed and nobody's around and you're naked and I'm, right? And Gawain has to pretend that she's just being courteous. But this is uncomfortable for Gawain. How is Gawain? And again, for us, this is fun, I think. It's delightful. No? Can you imagine? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's embarrassing. It's delightful. It's fun. You can imagine the situation. What's fun about it is imagining that you're Gawain, and how do I act here and be the way I'm supposed to be, while at the same time this is the most inappropriate situation I can imagine, and I have to act as if everything's okay. Upon my words, Gawain said, that is well, I guess, though I am not now he of whom you are speaking, to attain to such honors as here you tell. So she keeps trying to flatter him. And that's what's going to characterize the whole encounter. She was an urgent wooer, it says in the Bob and Wheel, that lady fair-faced, the knight with speeches pure, replied in every case. So a test of speech. Noble beast, the deer. Noble beast, Gawain. Madam, he said, Mary reward you, for I have enjoyed in good faith your generous favor, and much honor of else from others' kind deeds. But as for the courtesy they accord me, since my claim is not equal, the honor is your own, who are ever well-meaning. Nay, Mary, the lady demurred, as for me, I deny it. For were I worth all the legion of women alive, and all the wealth in the world at my will possessed, if I should exchange at my choice, and choose me a husband, for the noble nature I know, Sir Knight, in thee here, in beauty and bounty and bearing so gay, to which earlier I have heard, and hold it now true, then no lord alive would I elect before you. Okay, she's already married, and this is wildly inappropriate, but it's in accordance with courteous speech, because courteous speech in the day is hyperbole. You overstate it. You're the best man alive. Okay, but again, situationally, you can't talk this way in this situation. While you're at the dinner table, maybe. In the bedroom, this is a no-no, right? But he can't acknowledge that. She knows he can't acknowledge it. She's pushing, knowing that he has to behave and respond in a certain way, and he does. So it's a trial. She gives up and says, okay. And then she turns and says to him, hold on, there was one thing, you haven't been courteous at all. You didn't give me a kiss when I came in. You're supposed to give me a kiss. He's, oh. Well, of course he didn't give her a kiss when she came in. But he would, if he were outside the bedroom, he would have done that. He hasn't done that here, and he says, oh, I'm so sorry. Gives her the kiss. That's the end of the day. Okay, so they go back. I'm just trying to get through this. And the lord of the manor comes in, gives him the deer, and asks for what he gave in return, what he got that day in return. He gives him the kiss. He gets the deer, gets to eat it. The lord of the manor gets the kiss. And he's saying, where'd you get the kiss? That wasn't part of the pact. Didn't have to tell you. The pact was to give you what I got. I gave you what I got. The lord of the manor goes, okay. Off they go. Second day, another fight, another hunt. This time it's a boar. First was a stag, the second is a boar. Now a boar is a pig, but it's not a pig, it's a wild boar. A wild boar is an enormous beast. A wild boar is an omnivore as well. They eat everything. They eat meat. They don't just eat plants, they eat meat. And when we're talking big, I am talking several hundred pounds big. 500-800 pounds, that's huge. And the sharp tusk, the same sort of beast that Odysseus got his scar from. And you find them in Europe, and he's hunting them. And now the thing about a wild boar is while you're hunting it, it will hunt you. Because they're notoriously ill-tempered, and they will come after you and come out of they hide in the bushes, and they come out, and the razor-sharp tusk will go right through you. So this is a dangerous beast to hunt. And it's not particularly a noble beast either, although it's up there because insofar as it's dangerous and it's honorable to kill it. So that's the second. But the second day, the lady's even more direct with him. And it's getting a little bit hot for Gawain. Gawain's finding this rather difficult to push her back without offending her. And he, so much so by the end of the second day, he vows, I gotta get out of here. Because I'm not, like if I stay here another day, this is serious trouble, I gotta go. Right? I'll skip over that. But he gets 2 kisses at the end of the day. He gives the Lord in return 2 kisses. He gives him the boar that he killed, gets 2 kisses back, but Gawain says, I'm not going to stay here 3 days after all. I'm just going to go today. And he says, you have to stay. And Gawain's like, okay. Third day. Second day, by the way, he wakes up and he says, I'm not going to do the wake up, find me in bed thing again. I'm going to be out of the bed. I'm going to be all dressed. And so we're not going through day 2 that way. Still a problem. Day 3, he's now sitting like a cornered animal in the bedroom. She comes in and there he is. Now we're at day 3. Okay, what's going to go on here? sits down at him. On it goes. As I say, let me come to the third day. As it says, grant me leave to go tomorrow. Lord says no. As I am a true man, I swear on my troth, the green chapel thou shalt gain, and go to your business in the dawn of New Year, sir, ere daytime occurs, so still lie upstairs and at thine ease. Okay, so he has to stay there for day 3. Day 3, the lord of the manor goes out hunting. And what does he hunt on the third day? He hunts a fox. You associate fox hunting with the English countryside? It seems like a little bit of a letdown, actually. After 2 days, you get the stag, the noble beast. Day 2, the boar. Again, a noble beast to hunt, and a very threatening one at that. Day 3, you got a little red-coated vermin. Foxes go into hen houses, they kill everything there. Quick, edgy, hard to catch. Foxes chase after them, whatever. I mean, Beatrix Potter makes us feel sorry for the fox. Foxes are associated with evil. They always are. Not only are they associated with evil, they're associated with the devil. Strong associations in English medieval folklore. A fox is the devil, and fox hunting is hunting the devil out of the country. That's what the noblemen are there to do. A fox has that strong association of the devil. So you're not just hunting a beast, you're hunting an ignoble beast. This is not a noble beast. This is a representation in some ways of the devil, and you are trying to rid the country of all the works of the devil. In the same way that we saw in Beowulf, there were 3 beasts, and the third was the dragon. And the dragon represents death in some ways. Here it represents the devil. So the worst of the 3 is on the third day. And the lady is a bit like the fox. I mean, these days we talk about women as foxy. That's got nothing to do with it. I don't even know where that comes from, actually. Although it might have something to do with that, but I don't know that, and I'm not quite sure. But but like foxes, they're hard to catch. They hide, and they're just destructive animals. And farmers hunt them for reasons that literally, if a fox gets in your hen house, he doesn't kill what he wants to eat. He kills every chicken in the hen house, just because. Probably so they can come back and get them all afterwards. But just you can carry off 1 or maybe at most 2, kills them all. So you don't want foxes anywhere near your farms. But again, it's got further symbolic significance of the devil, and just like the symbol of the pentacle representing Christ, here we have the devil. Okay, so here's the conflict. And so subtle was Reynard, he's given a name, yea, the Lord, he led the Lord in his hunt as laggards behind him, thus by mountain, by hill, till mid-afternoon. In the middle of that, we get the account here. So it breaks up the narrative of chasing the fox to come to the bedchamber of Gawain. The lady in lovemaking had no liking to sleep, nor to disappoint the purpose she had planned in her heart. What does she plan on doing? She tries a third time to get him to be unfaithful. He won't do it. She gives up pretty quickly this time. And she says, okay, at least wear something that will remind you of me. Here's this green girdle. No, she offers him a ring, first of all. I won't take a ring. I'm not going to take a ring. She offers him a green girdle, and she says about the green girdle that the green girdle has a particular charm about it that will protect whoever's wearing it from all harm. If you wear this, no harm will befall you. Now, Gawain is about the next day to go face the Green Knight and the axe chop. She gives him the green girdle and gives him 3 kisses, and off they go. Then comes the end of the day. You exchange the gifts that you received that day. The fox is there. He kills the fox, gives him the fox. What does Gawain give him? He gives him 3 kisses. What does he not give him? The green girdle. He keeps that. What does he do at that point? He breaks his word. Why does he do it? Because he's afraid. Just like the court that he left. He didn't look at the inside of the shield. He was known by the outside. He's succeeded on the outside. All of the 5 points of the endless knot have been fulfilled, but he's not looking at the shield on the inside. He's looking at things on the outside. He's afraid by what he sees. He's not looking in the right place. And so he goes, and we'll pick it up in 4. So she offers him a rich ring. He won't take it. The green girdle, she does take it. He doesn't hand it over. So we begin the 4th episode. But he has already failed in his quest. Not in his quest, but in the game he has failed. The quest is with the Green Knight. He hasn't faced the Green Knight yet. So in that sense, he hasn't failed. But he has failed to be a perfect representative of Christ as he swore, because in his deeds and his words, etc., ever faithful, no, not anymore. At this point, we have no idea that the Lord of the Manor is the Green Knight, but it is. He'll go on through New Year's, and it will say, now New Year's draws near, and the night passes, now comes driving the dark, as ordained by God. But wild weathers of the world awaken the land, clouds cast keenly the cold upon earth, the bitter breath from the north biting the naked, snow comes shivering sharp to shrivel the wild things. Long the night listens as he lies in his bed, though he lays down his eyelids, very little he sleeps. At the crow of every cock he recalls well his tryst, the fight that comes. Briskly he rose from his bed ere the break of day, and there was light from the lamp that illumined his chamber. He calls to his chamberlain, and off I go. Puts on every piece, all burnished and bright, most gallant from here to Greece, for his courser called the night. And under that all, he has belted his brand upon his buxom haunches. He twined the love token twice then about him. Sweetly about his waist, that girdle of green silk. So it's hidden, but it's there. It's right, yeah. Out he goes. On his horse Gringolet, goes across a bridge, can't find who he's looking for, encounters somebody, and then he hears, and he says, oh, he's up there. And he hears a sound. What's the sound? It's the sound of an axe being sharpened. Off he goes, calls out loud, Gawain, said the green man, may God keep thee. On my word, sir, I welcome thee with a will to my place. And thou hast timed thy travels as trusty man should. And thou hast forgot not the engagement agreed on between us. At this time, gone a 12-month, thou tookst thy allowance, and I should now this new year nimbly repair thee. And we are in this valley now verily on our own. There are no people to part us. We can play as we like. Bandy me no more debate than I brought before thee, when thou didst sweep off my head with one swipe only. Nay, quoth Gawain, by God that gave me my soul, I shall grudge thee not a grain any grief that falls, only restrain thee to one stroke. And shall I stand and offer thee no hindrance to act as thou likes right here. With a nod of his neck he bowed, he let the flesh appear. He would not by dread be cowed, no sign he gave of fear. Now what is going to happen, again, for time's purposes, he lifts up the axe, and as he's going to, and down, Gawain flinches, and the knight mocks him. So he doesn't swing the axe, he lifts it up, and Gawain flinches a bit, and the knight, we've seen other, flighting, mock, what? I didn't flinch, what? And Gawain is furious. Thou art not Gawain, said the green man, who is a so good report, who never flinched from any foes or on fell or in day, and now thou fleest in fear ere thou feelst a hurt. Of such cowardice that night I ne'er heard accused, neither blenched I nor backed when thy blow, sir, thou aimest. My head flew to my feet, and yet fled I never. But thou, ere thou hast any hurt, in thy heart quailest. And so the nobler knight to be named I deserve, therefore. I blenched once, Gawain said, and I will do so no more. But if on floor now falls my head, I cannot it restore. You say that we're the same, we're comparing the two. Oh no. Oh no. Good. Yeah, there's a difference between us. Your head fell off and you could carry it off. You chop my head off and I'm done. I'm not walking away. But I won't do it again. So he lifts it up and then talks to him again. And Gawain's furious at this point. Would you just do it? So he lifts it twice. Third time he brings the axe down. And he nicks the neck so that the blood pops out. But he doesn't take his head off. He just nicks the neck. Well, you nick the neck with an axe and the blood's going to come out, and it comes out on the snow. But it's not, his head's not gone. But note that 3 times. Now, why the 3 times, the 3 lifting of the axe? Well, that gets explained. It's to pay him back for what happened in the castle. Because he reveals that he, the Green Knight, is none other than the Lord of the Manor, and that was part of the game. So for 2 days, you did nothing wrong. On the 3rd day, you didn't do what you said you would do, which is to give me what you received. And therefore, I've nicked your neck. I'm taking away your life, but I'm going to give you that nick on the neck for that. For it is my weed that thou wearest. A weed is a type of clothes, or it's a reference to clothes. I'm wearing, it's my green girdle. I'm the Green Knight, you have my green girdle on. That very woven girdle, my own wife had awarded thee. Identification. Green Knight, Lord of the Manor. I wot well indeed. Now I am aware of thy kisses and thy courteous ways, and of thy wooing by my wife. I worked that myself. I sent her to test thee, and thou seemst to me truly the fair knight, most faultless that ever set foot on the earth. As a pearl than white peas is prized more highly, so in Gawain in good faith than other gallant knights. But in this you lacked, good sir, a little, and of loyalty came short. For that was for no artful wickedness, nor for wooing either, but because you loved your own life. The less do I blame you. So I'm not going to hold it against you. The other stern knight in a study then stood a long while in such grief and so the Green Knight does not blame him for what has just happened. He says, you're the best knight. No blame for me. Gawain is mortified. He cannot live with what he's done. Here's the standard. I did not meet the standard. He is ashamed. He goes back to the court with the green girdle around his chest so that everyone can see it. It's a sign of shame. He's ashamed. I've failed. I come back as a failure. And he's not going to hide it even. It's part of his good character. Not going to, like, nobody needs to know about that. Guess what? Gawain comes back repentant, in a sense. How does the court? And he says to himself, cursed be ye, coveting and cowardice also. In you is vileness and vice that virtue destroyeth. He took the treacherous thing and untying the knot, he flung the belt at the knight of the feet. You brought me to this, etc. And he says, further on, the Green Knight laughing to this. And Gawain's so bitter that he says he goes after women in general. Even so, Adam by one on earth was beguiled, and Solomon by several, and to Samson, moreover, his doom by Delilah was dealt, and David was after blinded by Bathsheba, and he bitterly suffered. Now, if these came to grief through their guile, again would be vast to love them well and believe them not, as it lay in man's power. So, is this courteous? It's the opposite of courtesy. Now we're going to blame women for everything. So not only is it a nick in the neck, he becomes a misogynist, effectively. Bitter man. But for your girdle, quoth Gawain, may God you repay. And I will gain with goodwill, not for gold so joyous, of the cincture, nor the silk, or the swinging pennants, nor for wealth, nor for worth, nor for workmanship fine, but as a token of my trespass, I shall turn to it often. And he responds to him. The Green Knight says that his name is Bertilac de Haut-Desert. And he says, and thus, who have thus been enchanted and changed in my hue, by the might of Morgan le Fay. Who is the old lady? Morgan le Fay. Who's Morgan le Fay? King Arthur's relative. Well learned, the magic arts of Merlin she many hath mastered, for deeply in dear love she dealt on a time with that accomplished clerk, as at Camelot runs the fame, and Morgan the goddess is therefore now her name. None power and pride possess too high for her to tame. And she sent you there. Who orchestrated all this? Arthur's rival. She is a sorceress to destroy the Knights of the Round Table and Arthur, to get out of spite at Arthur to break this fame that they have for Christian charity. That's what lay behind the whole issue. She made me go in the skies to your goodly court to put its pride to the proof, if the report were true that runs of the great renown of the Round Table. She put in this magic upon me to deprive you of your wits, in hope Guinevere to her, that she in horror might die, aghast at the glamour that gruesomely spake, with its head in its hand before the high table. She it was that at home, that ancient lady. She's indeed thine own aunt, Arthur's half-sister. So this all came from that. Now, Gawain, what does he do? He rides back with the green girdle. He goes back to the court. What does the court do? He tells them of his shame. What do they do? Fashion item, we'll all wear the green girdle. Da, 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 da. Nothing. No repentance, no shame, nothing. How does the court of King Arthur get presented in the end? As a bunch of hypocrites. Is Christian virtue not promoted in it? Yes, it is. It still is. But the failure of Christians to be able to attain the kingdom of God here on earth is questioned fully. There's always a remnant of sin here. It's represented in Gawain. Gawain's aware of it. He's ashamed at it. His response is Christian, ultimately. Other than it, he doesn't seem to be able to forgive himself. This is a problem. But the court is diabolical in their reception of the gift, because they are proud of this, and they're going to hide it. Say, well, you know, if you're going to wear it, we'll wear it as a fashion item. So there's an element of irony at the end and satire, but it's devoted at the end to the clerk, to the one who wore a crown of thorns. Anyway, interesting story, I think. Delightful.